when the state decided to go to war with a Florida teacher who refused to take down a Black Lives Matter flag. Amy D'Onofrio was a beloved teacher at the then named Robert E. Lee High School in Jacksonville, Florida. On that campus, she fostered a safe and welcoming environment for the school's Black students, who made up 70% of the total school population. So much so that her students were empowered and compelled to advocate for stripping their school of its name, which honored a slave-holding Confederate general. Not surprisingly, these calls to rename the school were met with a hostile response from locals who showed up to the school waving their Confederate flags, demanding the name stay. D'Onofrio and the teaching staff were told by the building principal to stay neutral on all controversies, including the name change. But like always with Mrs. D'Onofrio, her students came first. And in the aftermath of George Floyd's murder in 2020, she displayed a Black Lives Matter flag outside her classroom. You'll be shocked to learn that it sparked a long, sordid saga at the school. The assistant principal suggested she remove the flag. She did not. And months later, new policy was instituted. She was told to remove it or, quote, it will be taken down for you. Again, she declined. The next day, the flag was removed and she was pulled from her classroom and reassigned to work in the district's warehouse. She would later be targeted by the DeSantis government, which filed an administrative complaint aiming to take away her teaching license. And despite a series of threats and harassment, D'Onofrio fought back. After winning a civil lawsuit against the county school board, she launched a legal battle to save her teaching license. Well, last week, a Florida judge ruled in her favor. She can be licensed to teach in the state of Florida. So in short, the so-called pro-free speech DeSantis government did everything they could to punish her for showing her support for the Black community and students. Their efforts failed. Amy D'Onofrio won, and she's going to join me next. My next guest became a target by the DeSantis government when she displayed a Black Lives Matter flag outside her classroom. They pushed to have her teaching license taken away, but she fought back and won. Amy D'Onofrio joins me now. Amy, let me just start off by apologizing for mispronouncing your last name in the previous segment. I'm so sorry for that, but I really appreciate you joining us, and I hope I will get it right going forward. Let me start with your reaction to this judge ruling in your favor. After all of these threats that you have dealt with over this, how does it feel to be vindicated at this point?
It's an overwhelming emotion. There's a lot of relief. I'm so thankful that truth was upheld and that affirming Black students is our responsibility as educators, not something that should cost us our license. But also there is a sense of grief, for 3 years of fighting and for our students, our communities having to go through this.
As I mentioned, you were not just targeted by parents. In fact, you had the state government going after you. I just want to play a quick clip from then Education Commissioner Richard Corcoran and what he said about you back in May of 2021 after you were reassigned.
I'm getting sued right now in Duval County, which is Jacksonville, because it was an entire classroom memorialized to Black Lives Matter. We made sure she was terminated, and now we're being sued by every one of the liberal left groups for freedom of speech issues.
What is it like to hear officials in that capacity, people with power, certainly all the way up to the governor of Florida, mischaracterize, lie, disparage, and demean what you were doing?
It was devastating. It changed my life forever, frankly. It was terrifying. At that time, I was actually still employed, and state investigation was open. But soon after I spoke up about it, both things changed. And I do want to clarify, there actually were no parent complaints. There was not a single parent complaint. There was not a single student complaint. In fact, parents were very much vocal about wanting a flag, about wanting me in the class. Concerning to me, there's a lot of things that are concerning, but we talk about parent rights, and in the state of Florida, you have to ask yourself, what parents? I just saw again and again and again that the voices, the desires of Black parents for their children disregarded over and over and over. And that's just not right. And I think we have to take a good hard look at ourselves in the mirror as a state and really think about why that is and how we fix it.
Why do you think this is happening? I guess maybe more broadly speaking, now that you have been on the receiving end of this, how is it possible in this day and age that government agencies, the education system, and certainly the Florida and the leader of Florida would go after you in a way that is supposed to be having a chilling effect on the broader discourse in the society, right? I mean, Ron DeSantis was very clear about this. He said this is where woke goes to die, and the way that they were trying to portray this as something to do with wokeism. And I'm just curious to get your thoughts, having gone through this experience. What is your takeaway as to why Florida is doing this to people like you and others?
I've spent 3 years thinking about this question, and what I can come up with is that it's really concerning when people forget 64% of public school students in the state are students of color. Affirming them as human beings, supporting their needs, it is not woke. It's just basic humanity. And it's a really scary place to be as a society, state that I love. And we would find something controversial about simply saying, hey, you matter, we care, and we're here for you. But that's where we are.
Let me go back to the point that you were raising about the parents and the students. Talk to us about the support that you received from your students. I understand that when you were reassigned, they collected nearly 18,000 signatures on a public petition calling for your return. But just talk to me about how and what that felt like.
Like every teacher, I have the best students in the world. It's just that simple. I have amazing students that have achieved incredible things. Prior to my removal, my students and I co-founded an organization called EVAC movement, where with very little resources or funding and led by students who are faced with all kinds of challenges, from homelessness to incarcerated parents to murdered loved ones, decided to do something to create positive change. And they've met President Barack Obama. They presented 4 times at the White House, or at Harvard University. We have presented at the White House. We've given a TED Talk. We've done all these things. And instead of encourage students and applaud students, when it comes to Black students in the state of Florida, it's hard to talk about because I've thought about it so many different ways. But the only thing I can say is that the level of racism that our Black students are up against, definitely in Jacksonville, Florida, definitely at Robert E. Lee High School where I was, but also in Florida in general, is terrifying. And any person with any bit of humanity or a heart should be concerned and should be vocal. My students, because of what they led, they knew how to mobilize, they knew how to use their voices, and they knew before they had me as a teacher. And I'm really proud of them for standing up and speaking out for what they believe was right.
And we thank you as well, Amy, for everything that you're doing and for standing up and being so courageous in leading this charge. Amy Donofrio, thank you for making time for us. Thank you for joining us.